Hi, I'm Wayne Besen, and many of you know me as the executive director for Truth Wins Out, an organization that fights right wing extremism and promotes LGBTQ equality at truthwinsout.org. And others may know me from my days as a talk radio host for WCPT Chicago's Progressive Talk. This is my first podcast for War of the Words, and I thank you for joining me. Let's get right into it. You know how we know Republicans and the NRA are full of shit? At their convention in Houston, they are actually banning guns. That's right, banning guns during former President Donald Trump's speech. An entire auditorium packed with good guys packing. It's a convention with thousands of the proverbial good guys with guns. Yet they don't feel they can protect Donald Trump. Imagine that. I wish they cared as much about protecting your children as they do the former twice impeached president. But wrap your mind around that for a moment. Wrap your mind around the astounding hypocrisy. Republicans, they oppose background checks, red flag laws, and taking weapons of war off the streets. Republicans have lowered the age limit for gun ownership. They have permitted gun fetishists to carry concealed weapons. Gun licensing requirements have been abolished. The gun lobby has they've demanded allowing guns in schools, movie theaters, churches, malls, and even bars because our best decisions are always made on tequila at 3 a.m. Anyway, Republicans, they want these weapons of war in all of these civilian places, but not inside the NRA convention. How convenient. That's the equivalent of McDonald's having a convention and banning the Big Mac. Hey, you can't eat this shit in here. It's high in cholesterol. It causes heart attacks. I mean, come on. Let me tell you something. The NRA and Donald Trump are paranoid two-faced phonies who are scared of themselves and don't believe their own rhetoric. And the most brilliant idea I've heard this week comes from Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is under indictment on felony security fraud charges. So this genius Paxton, he proposed a solution to the gun school shooting problem, which is arming teachers. Yes, a regular Einstein. But teachers, I mean, they don't want to do this. They're not law enforcement officers. They aren't trained to take down an active shooter. These situations have a lot of adrenaline. And teachers are more likely to end up accidentally shooting their students than saving them. Furthermore, when I think back to my school days, there were some crazy-ass teachers with ferocious tempers. Some of them weren't well. For real, think back to your school days and some of your teachers. We tend to glamorize them years later, but we forget some of them, were a little off. I mean, really, would you feel comfortable with guns in their desks, some of your teachers? I mean, on the plus side, some of the students might not be talking back so much, but I mean, still. Consider this. There are 3.5 million public school teachers in the United States. If you supply guns to this many teachers, or a quarter, or a half, or whatever, I guarantee you that you're creating a brand new problem you did not anticipate. The classroom is a stressful environment. Teenagers, they can be defiant, they can be rebellious, and into this cauldron of stress where teachers are overburdened and underpaid, Republicans want to introduce guns. Bunch of Einsteins. And I promise you, I guarantee you will see teachers snap in the classroom and go on shooting sprees. Some will go postal from the stress. I mean, if you thought the knuckle-rapping math teacher with a ruler was bad, imagine the demented right-wing gym teacher with a Glock 19. Sounds like a good time. I want my kids at that school. On another predictable note, a sad note, the right-wing slime machine is back. It's working overtime to spread disinformation about the Texas shooter. In the online fever swamps, these deplorables, and Hillary Clinton was so right about that, they are deplorables. They are spewing lies that the Texas shooter is, quote, a transgender leftist illegal alien. I'm sure in this white supremacist cesspool of fake news that the killer will have miraculously converted to Judaism or Islam by the end of the week, too. I mean, why do people listen to these nuts? I mean, how stupid do you have to be to get fooled over and over and over again? These crazies have no scruples and no shame. They will do or say anything. They lie like other people drink water or breathe. That's who they are. That's what they do. That's how they define themselves. That is their initiation rite. Here's a random thought. Wouldn't America be better off if Republicans focused less on LGBT and focused more on AR 15s, which are actually killing school children? Yeah, they're not going to take my advice. What a week we had. What a week. Here we go again doing the NRA Republican death dance. This time, an 18-year-old gunman carrying an assault rifle slaughtered at least 19 children and two teachers at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Well, most Americans, the vast majority of us, we want reasonable gun reform. Nothing will likely happen because we no longer have a real functioning democracy. Let's admit it, we don't. The Republicans have used gerrymandering, dark money, voter suppression, a hostile takeover of the Supreme Court, propaganda media outlets like Fox, and a structural advantage in the Electoral College to install minority rule. They have cunningly exploited our system to lock themselves in power so they don't care what the majority thinks. They don't give two shits what you think. That's why the Supreme Court's able to overturn Roe v. Wade, even though the vast majority of people support the legal right to abortion. They don't care. Jennifer Rubin in the Washington Post had an excellent column today, and I agree with it. She said, quote, "Our hearts are broken because our democracy is broken. Again, we face a preventable tragedy for which a possible solution was rendered impossible, not by lack of democratic will, but by the confluence of two factors. Number one, an extreme irrational party that has rejected democratic principles, and number two, a constitutional structure that is ill-equipped to deal with it." Rubin is correct. That is at the root of why we can't get along in this country, why we can't move forward, why we are stuck. In any effort to stop the madness and mayhem will likely be obstructed by the NRA and the rented Republican puppets. Do you want to know why we have a problem like this in the United States with guns? Do you want to know why? Check out this psychotic gun-worshipping ad by Katie Britt, who is running for U.S. Senate in Alabama.
I'm Katie Britt. Growing up in the Wiregrass, I learned to respect our Second Amendment and always shoot straight. As Alabama's next senator, I'll stop Joe Biden's radical agenda dead in its tracks. Reckless spending, job-killing tax hikes, runaway inflation, vaccine mandates, open borders for illegal immigrants, and abortion on demand. I approve this message because I am ready to take on Joe Biden.
Wow. What kind of psychotic ad is that? Why would that appeal to any psychologically healthy human being? I mean, the gun issue is like riding a stationary exercise bike. You feel like you're going somewhere, but you're really riding in place and going nowhere fast. Every single damn time there is a mass shooting, a school shooting, there is a predictable, well-worn script. And let's review that right now. First, we are offered unsolicited outpourings of thoughts and prayers. We're all familiar with that by now. I mean, that happens every single time. Thoughts and prayers. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz provided his blessings on Twitter, not that we asked. He wrote, "Heidi and I fervently are lifting up in prayer the children and families in the horrific shooting in Uvalde." Thanks, Ted. I'm sure that will help, like it always does. But the tragic truth is these dead children won't be lifted up, Ted. They will be lowered 6 feet down into their graves, because that's what happens when you don't have reasonable gun safety reform in your country. The only thing less impressive than Ted Cruz's useless prayers are his empty thoughts. However, Cancun Cruz's pockets certainly aren't empty. He was the #1 recipient of campaign cash from the National Rifle Association, the NRA. His prayers for money certainly came true. They always come true. When he prays for money, it rains cash. Yeah, his prayers for money came true, with the senator receiving more than $300,000 in campaign donations from gun lobbyists during his last campaign in 2018, which is $80,000 more than the #2 recipient of NRA money. Clearly, Ted Cruz is the king of NRA cash, but hey, we got his prayers. Aren't we lucky? I'm sure they'll be very helpful. Ironically, Cruz, Texas's other Senator John Cornyn, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott are scheduled to speak Friday at the National Rifle Association's 2022 annual meeting in Houston. Great timing for an NRA speech, don't you think? Think of all the prayers we're going to get at the convention. Well, maybe Jesus was resurrected, but I seriously doubt all the prayers from the NRA are going to bring the dead children from the elementary school back to life. That's the reality. So they can save their prayers. And hey, evangelicals, we've been more than fair. The Columbine school shooting occurred in 1999 with 12 students murdered. You stepped up and offered your lovely prayers, your lovely thoughts and prayers. Well, it's 2022 and the number of school shootings are increasing. They are skyrocketing. You certainly can't say we didn't give your method a chance, can you? Like an internet meme wisely put it, for Republicans, life begins at conception and ends in a school shooting. Maybe it's time for a new approach. I'm just saying. We've tried God, and this doesn't seem to be his particular issue. Perhaps it's time to bench God and give our second string, the government, a chance to pass legislation. Again, just saying. In fact, a few hours after the Uvalde shooting, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer cleared the way to force votes that would strengthen background checks, because most people believe in background checks. Here's our chance to try something new. Gun safety reform. Now, that seems to work everywhere else in the world, where they curtail gun proliferation, the murder rate plummets. But we don't want to try it. To quote a satirical headline in The Onion, no way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens. My message to Senator Cruz is simple. You're not a preacher. You were hired as a lawmaker, so why don't you drop the Televangelist Act and support Senator Schumer's efforts and pass some damn laws? That's why we sent you there. You want to act like a preacher? Quit your job and go start a church. The next step in the NRA Republican death dance is the part where locals proclaim, and this happens every damn time, the locals proclaim, I can't believe it happened here. Why is anyone surprised? We live in America. If it can happen in Aurora, Paducah, Columbine, Newtown, Parkland, Red Lake, and all the other tranquil, leafy suburbs, then why not Uvalde? Why not in my front yard or your backyard? Think about it. It's time to stop being stunned or shocked because these massacres are frequent and happen at any time, any place, anywhere. Mass shootings in America are as predictable as Christmas in December. The first step to stopping the carnage is admitting we have a problem and that no one is safe. You can't escape this. These shootings are random, and you never know when you or your loved one will be in the line of fire. So we got to get out of this denial. You're not safe whether you're a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican. The NRA Republican death dance continues with pious proclamations by Americans who claim, this isn't who we are. Now that reminds me of a friend whose boyfriend walked in on him having sex with another dude. Caught red-handed, the cheating boyfriend looks up and declares, this isn't me. Without skipping a beat, his crestfallen partner replies, well, if it's not you, your impersonator sure got lucky. At this moment in time, wanton gun violence and the senseless slaughter of school children defines America. It's what makes us special, American exceptionalism, but in the wrong direction. We are a people who chronically elect politicians who pose with machine guns and mindlessly enable the bloodshed to continue. Don't say this isn't who we are. Do you want to know who we are? Do you want to know exactly who we are? We are a country where gun deaths reached the highest number ever recorded in 2020, surging by 35%. We are a country that has 331 million people, yet an astounding 400 million firearms. We are a country where more Americans have died from gunshots in the last 50 years than in all the wars in American history. Since 1968, more than 1.5 million Americans have died in gun-related incidents. By comparison, approximately 1.2 million service members have been killed in every war in U.S. history. I mean, how fucked up is that? We are a country that peddles the fiction that we need guns for hunting, but for more than a decade. Semi-automatic handguns outsell rifles. So yes, we are hunting, but for people. Or we are trying to protect ourselves from people that we believe are hunting us. What a wonderful society we have created. What a wonderful place to live. Do you feel safer with the proliferation of guns? I don't. We are a country that, despite the epidemic of gun violence, keeps producing more guns. Annual domestic gun production increased from 3.9 million in 2000 to 11.3 million in 2020. We are a country controlled by politicians that claim to be pro-life, yet cower in the face of protecting the lives of children. The rate of gun deaths for children 14 and younger rose by roughly 50% from the end of 2019 to the end of 2020. To paraphrase the late comedian George Carlin, the Republican Party loves you if you're preborn, but if you make it to preschool, you're fucked. We are a country that elects people like Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He signed a law in 2021 that ended the requirement for Texans to obtain a license to carry handguns. This permitted basically anyone over the age of 21 to carry a pistol. How's that working out for you, Texas? Where was your fictional good guy with a gun to save the lives of those innocent child victims in Uvalde? Now, the final step in the NRA Republican death dance is to piously proclaim, now isn't the time to politicize tragedy. Well, choosing to do nothing in the face of violence is the epitome of politicization. It's a choice to accept the status quo that keeps adding statistics and piling up dead bodies while proclaiming to be pro-life. Sadly, and we have to bring this up, we can't go without talking about this, much of our gun culture is tied to white supremacy. And we saw this aspect of our gun insanity play out in the supermarket shooting in Buffalo, New York. Across the country, paranoid right-wing nutcases and militias are stockpiling weapons of war for an imaginary race war that they keep trying to instigate. And thanks to the MAGA movement, they've been emboldened. They believe that they are the majority now, and they are trying to take their rightful place in America. We all saw these gun-toting fake patriot wackos at state houses protesting against COVID restrictions, and at rallies protesting Donald Trump's defeat. And what's driving this paranoia? We have to ask, why is this happening? Personally, I blame right-wing media outlets like Fox News. The network's top host, Tucker Carlson, has aired 400 episodes that discuss the Great Replacement, a debunked conspiracy theory that claims scheming Jews and plotting liberal pedophiles are replacing good, white, God-fearing Christians with godless brown people and militant transgender activists. Yeah, that's what they're selling. That's what they're saying. And the Fox News crowd, I'm not being judgmental here, but they're not known to be the brightest bulbs in the lamp. And they believe this lie. So they get scared and they stockpile weapons in their country basements in preparation for that imaginary black transgender army that's surely coming any day, just like Jesus. And I think that Americans' cable companies are reckless and irresponsible. They ought to make Fox News a pay-only channel like HBO. If people want to pay extra to self-brainwash and poison their minds, by all means, knock yourself out. But why are companies like Comcast broadcasting this toxic cultural sludge for free and spreading it out through society? Why are they dividing America and inspiring hate-fueled murder sprees? Is the money that important? Apparently it is. You know, these cable companies have blood on their hands, and they are destroying democracy. Shame on them. It's all about profit. The country be damned. One final point. The gun violence problem is also caused by a uniquely American delusion shared by way too many men, that they are Rambo. Yes, toxic masculinity on steroids. Yeah, they all want to be Rambo. You know, we might be 350 pounds eating potato chips while watching reality TV and a lazy boy, yet in our vivid imagination, we are special forces like Chuck Norris or Clint Eastwood. Go ahead, make my day. The truth, however, is that the vast majority of the time, an active shooter has the upper hand because of the element of surprise. You know, think about this for a minute. If presidents like Ronald Reagan and JFK can be shot despite the protection of the Secret Service, if so many rappers can get shot with their considerable security detail, what realistic chance do you have, the average Joe, little out of shape, what chance do you have against an ambush by a cray shooter in body armor with an AR-15? Sorry, buddy, you ain't the Terminator you think you are. Why don't you have a reality check? Sadly, this merry-go-round of madness will continue unobstructed, unrestrained, and unabated until America admits this is precisely who we are. But this isn't who we want to be. We are better than this, and I believe we can be. But with pro-NRA Republicans seeming to have an edge in the midterms, our nation is literally electing to have more mass shootings. We're electing to have more mass shootings by voting Republican. Vote these cretins out. Make gun safety reform one of your issues. If we elect good people, we'll get good laws. If we elect people like Ted Cruz, we all lose. No excuses. Let's vote these clowns out. We can do it. We can create the country that we deserve. We can create the country where our children do not have to cower under their desks and train for active shooters. Aren't you sick of this? Haven't you had enough already? I certainly have. I'll end with the most poignant meme I read on the Texas school shooting. It said, "Let's take a moment to honor the sacrifice of our brave school children who lay down their lives to protect our right to bear arms." This is War of the Words with Wayne Besen. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to save us under favorite podcast. Tell your friends about War of the Words. I would appreciate that. And check for our latest episodes. Until we meet again, see you next time.